We will recommence. We've got now going to deal with the urgent item. I just have had one or two people expressing their concern to me about our view vis-a-vis Nepal and the extraordinary tragedy that's in that country at the moment. I undertook to just convey to Stephen a request on behalf of us to have a look at how Auckland might, as a part of the way in which New Zealand is responding, assist. Clearly Nepal is halfway around the rest of the world, but we have a very strong relationship with Nepal, obviously starting with Syriad. So given the fact that in the Shaky Isles we're very, very experienced dealing with the consequences of earthquakes, our expertise, in particular in the areas of water, wastewater and stormwater, would be second to none, and we may be of some assistance. So, Stephen, on behalf of us all, if you can just perhaps assess and then report by way of email how we might help without losing the plot. Right, okay, urgent business. This is now item 15 to deal with specifically with the Ports of Auckland wharf extensions and the ongoing discussion that we have been having with the with ACIL as our intermediary with the Ports of Auckland, and in some instances direct. This is an opportunity for us now to reflect formally on the formal response from the Ports of Auckland. It is clear in a nutshell that the response, and I'm going to ask Mike and Steve to speak on this, but that the response is clear and has formalised the indication that the Port Board are in agreement that during the course of the port study that they would only be looking to erect one of the wharves duly consented, B2. I will save my more substantive comments to post update from Mike and Steve. But what I do want to do, and you have got in front of you or on the board, proposed recommendation, and I will move that, and Councillor Penny Hulse will second that as a way for us to get this matter up and moving. Michael, would you like to come forward? Or, no, I'm talking about Mike Quinn, not Michael Cohen. I do note Mike Cohen is here, and councillors, as one of the local board chairs, I have offered him the opportunity of some comment once you've had your comments.
Your Worship.
Michael, Catherine and Bram.
Maybe worth just going over
yes.
What's occurred in the past few weeks for the benefit of councillors who haven't been briefed, and for the media and any public who are here. So just to recap, on the 1st of April, the Auckland Development Committee asked the Chief Executive and ACIL to do all in their power to defer the wharf extensions.
Yep. New chamber in 135. This one's falling to bits.
No, keep it here.
Keep focused, team.
Keep it here.
Michael.
Since that resolution, there have been a number of exchanges of letters between ACIL, Ports of Auckland and Auckland Council, and there have been a number of meetings between senior council staff and senior management of Ports of Auckland. Those discussions have enabled us to test some of the thinking of Ports of Auckland. We have relied on the information provided by the ports, but we've asked them intelligent questions, probed their thinking, tested their analysis, and that has been based on information that has been given to us from the public, from councillors and other sources. In addition to that, Ports of Auckland have shown Gary Swift, the Chief Executive of ACIL, and myself the board papers that underpinned the Ports of Auckland's board's decisions That's quite an unusual step, but they gave us access. Those papers showed a well-reasoned rationale for the proposals, that they did consider to some extent the alternatives, the existing infrastructure, the problem definition and the constraints. On the basis of those discussions, we have briefed councillors informally on 2 occasions this week and outlined the alternatives that could be considered in the longer term and the more immediate options. The more immediate options are for Ports of Auckland to continue or to cease either voluntarily or through an intervention by Auckland Council. We've also looked at variations of those extensions. So it will be a variation of 1.5 wharfs, that is half of B3, or just a single wharf, which is just B2. The impact of those variations are that multi-cargo vessels and car carriers, there will be some constraints in the numbers of those that could berth at the port. And if the cruise ship facility is not constructed, Auckland would not be able to cater for any of the new longer cruise ships that will visit here from 27. That excludes the existing commitments to the Queen Mary. Ports of Auckland responded formally today to Gary Swift and Stephen Town, outlining their proposal, and that is to construct only 1 wharf, that's B2. They've made a commitment that if the outcome of the port's future study, those conclusions find that B2 is not required, then the port will demolish B2 or take it away. They've asked that the port study is completed within 12 months to provide them with some certainty about the future infrastructure requirements. The impact of only building B2 is that we will be unable to cater for those longer cruise ships. The port has asked for feedback so they can decide which way they move.
Right. Catherine or Bram, anything? Nope, good. Stephen?
I just was going to prompt Bram and Catherine. We did get effectively an independent review of all of our legal advice that we've given you, and that's confirmed that you've been given very comprehensive and complete advice on the issues.
Very good. Councillors, in moving this recommendation and ahead of questions and comment, I want people to be able to, if they want to make their speeches now, they can. If they want to ask questions, they can and then speak. But I would be keen for us to keep moving at a reasonable pace here.
A question, just to clarify the wording, because it's ambiguous to me.
Sorry.
Just, you don't say to proceed with building B2. You just, it's silent on that. It just says don't proceed with B3, and if it's not required, we'll pull down B2. But it doesn't. I'd actually like to see us saying yes, it's okay, because that's what's intended. Yep,
that's okay.
But clearly articulate that.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. So just type that in there.
B2 extension process.
It could be before the B3 thing.
All right.
Because that's the first thing, isn't it?
So, councillors, this is a point where we need to accept the formal response from the Ports of Auckland and then respond with our view. And I want to strongly encourage the view that we should accept at this time what is a significant reduction in the port's expectations, but also a reduction in our expectations. My abiding view in this, given the fact that we have and are required to shoulder the responsibility of 3 separate delegations, one relation to regulatory, the other to political leadership, and the third to shareholder representation, that we need to balance all of those in the decision that we make as to how we respond to the port's offer. What has become increasingly evident is that as a fast-growing city, and we now look like we're growing in population at about 3% per annum, the harbour space will become increasingly busy. And the port's position of, quite frank, luxury and development over the decades has come to an end, because there is so much other activity that the port need to be mindful of, as well as the health of the harbour and the port's long-term viability in terms of economic, social, cultural and environmental impact and benefit to the city need to be appropriately reflected. So the timing of the port future study is critical and appropriate now. It is also pretty clear that as a consequence of the port, by and large, being able to just get on with its life in all the 170 years up to this, that they have developed a type of a culture. And I have consistently reflected on that culture as not being overly helpful in terms of its engagement with an increasingly interested, inquisitive and community that's passionate about its harbour and its activity. And I have compared the port and its culture in a negative sense to that of the other great utility that borders the Manukau Harbour, and that is the airport company. The airport company has shown itself to be strongly transparent, inclusive of its community and inclusive of its council and part owner in the way in which they go forward. My only hope, and this is a hope of someone who leads the city and quite frankly has a high level of support for the port, and in fact has won 3 elections or 4 elections so far, based on, sorry, 3 on the losing it a bit. Based on, it's been such a long day. 3 elections thus far, based on very strong support for the maintenance of the public ownership of our port. So,
good call.
I think that it is very much time for a culture shift at the port. I want to acknowledge them for their commercial turnaround over recent years, and they've done particularly well on that front, and we could ask for no more than that. I want to acknowledge the way in which now they are engaging with us and their indications that they would like to be more engaged, and their commitment to the port future study going forward. All of that is good news. But what I think is particularly helpful on this day is that I can support what is proposed here as something of a halfway house on the basis that the port are able to continue to do this against continuing strong growth, holding its equilibrium and the confidence of its customers and of the international port and shipping community, but also a sign of good faith to our community, that it knows, understands and accepts that the community is genuinely concerned about how the port grows and develops within the harbour space. And so on that basis, with the port having made the concession that they have, I think at a practical level, with only one of the wharves being proposed to be built and clearly being able to be removed in the event that, one, either a successful law case, or secondly, that the future port study, after a year of reflection, information, advice, analysis and research, at the end of that year, if it was clear that the port could grow on its present footprint financially, sustainably, and with due reflection on all the environmental issues, then they would pull out that addition. But I think for the community's view, it is comforting to see just the one wharf extension, which does not automatically then give rise to reclamations between the two wharves, which I think is an abiding and continuing concern, and certainly with those who have expressed a lot of interest in what we're doing with our port and have taken the opportunity to protest in recent times.